I make the nats command line utility, which you see over here. And we would like this command line utility to be usable by AI LLM agents. So it should be really easy for them to call into this utility from skills, MCP servers, etc. And that the output from the command is such that the LLM can make best use and best decide what to run next. And so, just like today, a CLI utility is optimized for human use, we would like to get a CLI utility as optimized for use by LLMs who don't come with any kind of background knowledge that you may have as a human. And so what you're seeing here is the built-in standard help that you're going to get. When you run a subcommand, you get those. When you run a command and you give it help, you get these. Now there's a number of problems here in terms of completeness, but it's what fits in for human consumption. And so things like, what data type is this stuff? Here we can see it's an enum, so the options are there. But things like this, what's accepted, what is the max, what kind of data type are we putting in there? These numbers also, is the N64 or is it int 8? You don't know. And so and even the things like here where the environment variables can be passed, that's quite difficult to parse out for any tool, including LLMs. And so to do so super reliably. However, they are of course fully capable of dealing with markdown. And so if I show also some other stuff here, here's a command. This is a very typical kind of output that you see. This kind of columns layout here with values after it, with sections broken into, and sections having subsections that's denoted by the indent level. And so this is a very typical thing, and this is all generated using a rendering package, if you want. And if I do server list, I just know that this is a system command, and so I have to choose a system user password, and then I get a table out, and here we have the colors indicating that this is a system account or a normal account. And so friendly for humans, kind of pain to parse for machines. You can see there's some chopped off rendering here so that the tables don't overflow and make a mess. A lot of just bad, wasted white space over here, which of course is going to consume context. And so I want to think about all of these kind of aspects and make an LLM accessible command, just as I've thought a lot about things like the color feedback and the utilities of the tables and so forth, to make a really useful human feedback system. Now when Claude Code runs any CLI, it sets that variable. And so if we did just that, as soon as I run that, you can see I have additional information here that explains to the LLM that actually, if it invokes me with LLM format 1, it'll get a whole different view over this command line tool. So I'm just going to do that now. And I'm going to run the same command. And what we see is now I have a markdown version of the help. And we have some additional information. I can see the authentication scope that's required to run this command. I can see the impact. And if I go, for instance, here, I can even teach it, things like the data types, the environment variables to set it. Let me pipe this to glow. 100. Yeah. There's a lot of information we can set here, and it's all marked down. So much more information I can reasonably be shown to the LLM than I could for a human, because humans would need to much harder to parse for us. All of the enums are expanded over here, data types, really rich data type hints. Here we got string, UN64s, N64s, etc. Now I make the parsing library called Fisk. It's a Golang. It's a fork of the Go Kingpin package, and so everything you've seen here about the help output and so forth, that's purely Fisk. And so if you use Fisk, you would automatically get yourself up to here. And this is obviously application specific stuff like the tags, my tags have different meaning than your tags. So if you use my application library, you can tell it how the tagging works and what tags means. But now if we go back to the screens I showed you earlier, here is the count info that I showed you, which was the kind of columnar display. And you see that even application areas, like if I do, here's the information about a particular stream. So even these are all turning into Markdown, where if I just if I set this to a different format, you'll see that's how it looks normally. If I set it back to 1, that's it. So even my application rendering changes into LLM friendly text. And even if we go into that report I ran earlier, you'll see Markdown displays. And so really this gives us a whole different view over the application. The user interface target is entirely different. We're optimizing for different outcomes. We're optimizing for different ways of using the screen and using space, etc. And it makes it really easier to parse with LLMs. I've done some testing, a little bit of testing, and there's a couple of people who's been thinking in this area on what would be better for LLM to write tooling. And this is where I'm at. This is what I'm thinking about. There is also an additional case, which if I go, here we have flags like max messages. There is some suggestions that it might be easier if I accepted this as JSON tokens with the value set, and then I parse those JSON into the correct formats for the CLI, and I might give that a go to see if I can make that support also. But already with this, I found asking LLMs questions about the CLI is a lot better. And this additional thing I want to do here, cheat stream, I will also show it perhaps this information. Which is my library includes support for the cheats utility, and so that I will probably include this also in the LLM details, so that he has a actual reference for how to use the application. And it matters less than it would for humans if I just chuck all this stuff into the help output. Humans might be overwhelmed by that. LLMs will find it useful, and so having my library be introspectable, having all these behaviors tagged up and marked up, having the examples, having the cheats, having a command line parsing that's fully introspectable, which is something I've been spending a lot of time working on in my command line library, has made it possible for me to just reskin the entire thing into an LLM ready CLI or a human ready CLI. And I have some other formats also, like JSON output for the columnar input, and TSV and CSVs and all this kind of stuff. Output for the tables. So the whole UI really is dynamically built and has all different formats and can be changed on the fly. But really the thing I've done here is to create a single LLM format variable that triggers a whole lot of change behavior and change formatting for every page essentially in the CLI. Hopefully one day something like this will become a standard way to trigger into LLMs, but for now, because I basically say so in help output, it's discoverable and LLMs seem to use it. Anyway, that's what I'm working on. Thank you.